Welcome to the Outer Rim Rookie, a beginner's journey to join the 501st and Rebel Legion. My name is Rob Williams. Today has been a long time coming. I finally got to build the AT-AT driver chest box. A couple things you need to go over first. One, this is by no means a perfect job. I am the epitome of, if I can do it, you can do it, because I don't know how to build squat. Taking on this challenge was a huge task for me. There was a lot of frustration, a lot of anger, no tears, thankfully, but a lot of questions. And I know there's people out there like the droid builders or people who put these things together normally who are probably looking at that and saying, you think that was hard? But this was complicated for me because I don't know how all this stuff works. There were no instructions. It was all kind of like, here's the pieces, pop her together. A lot of questions were asked. I had to connect with my friends. I had to kind of just sit there and problem solve. But in the end, I'm kind of happy with what I put together here. Now in this video, you're going to see me kind of put this all together and add the greeblies and follow the 501st CRL. What you won't see in this video is the solution to how to put the hoses in. So these parts right here, that's going to come in a future video because frankly, I haven't quite figured it out yet. Also, some important things to know for this video is that the shell of the AT-AT driver box is from Walt's Trooper Factory, and the greeblies are from Pilot Bay. If you haven't checked out the box opening yet, go back a few videos and you'll see the me showing you all the pieces that come with the Walt's Trooper Factory as well as the Pilot Bay greeblies. Now, also something else to note, the videos were of the box opening. I didn't get to really truly know the build and the pieces until I got to put it together. And I gotta be honest with you, there were some things that kind of surprised me when I was putting this thing together, especially when it came to Walt's Trooper Factory build of the box itself. A box opening is one thing, and you get to look at it and you get to look at the pieces, fantastic. But when you put it together, you start to discover a few things, and I discovered quite a lot, especially when it came to Walt's box make, the pull and the shape of it. So we'll get into that in the video. But I hope you learned something off this video. I hope you get something, and I hope it helps encourage you, because seriously, as I said at the beginning, this is brand new to me. It's not perfect, but I kind of dig it. So let's get to it. Let's put the box together. Here we go. One of the things I ended up doing right from the very beginning is just sitting there and looking at all the pieces, laid it all out, did some research, and try to figure out how the heck am I going to put this together. I visited websites to watch build videos, even went to some Facebook sites where other creators were building their costume. In the end though, it still seemed very overwhelming. I'd like to say I had a plan after sitting around and thinking about it, but I really didn't. So I decided, well, at least get something going. Cut out the buttons, sand it down, and start there. And maybe something will come to mind. I felt if I just kept on going, kept walking, just moving even baby steps, at least I'll have made progress and get somewhere. One tip my friends told me when cutting ABS was to score, then fold. And that was quite useful. I would score a few times with a nice sharp blade and then fold it in and out, and it came out quite easily. And just like that, after a few minutes, I felt I made some progress. Now I had to trim the box, just take some of the lip off of it and make sure it fits inside each other. One of the things I noticed when I was trimming the box was that the corners are not as tight as I wish they had been. They look kind of oddly folded, and it made things a little more frustrating when trying to not only trim it, but just on the presentation alone. In the back, I decide to measure out a hole so I can access the inside, putting electronics and screwing things in, but also having something not too big so I can screw it onto the chest plate, which you'll see later. I decided the next step was to make the hole for the red glass. I traced out the hole from the plate and then just made it a couple millimeters wider, just so I can hide the edges of the plastic case. This was suggested online by a number of people. One of the things I noticed when putting this together was that the Pilot Bay plate was too long for the Walt Trooper Factory box, so I had to carefully trim off the end of the plate, sand it down, and stick it on. It fits perfectly now, but was a little surprised in the difference of size. Next, I had to build the side of the box. This was probably the most frustrating part of this entire build. Walt suggested to create some sort of wall out of ABS. I would have to measure out the inside of the box, draw it on paper, trace it out onto the plastic, and then glue it to the inside. I would also have to trim the edges of the box as well to make it all seem like one long piece. Something like this looks kind of messy and awkward, so I'd have to make sure that the bottom part of the box lines up with the top part of the box. This whole process was very finicky and a real pain in the butt. I'm not a fan of the design, but I have to work with what I was given. And it turned out reasonably okay. One of the things I noticed was that the ends of the box was not at a 90-degree angle. So I had to use a heat gun just to flatten it just a little bit more so that the wall and the edges of the box could touch and connect better. After all that, I decided to refocus and add some greeblies at the ends of the buttons. I spray painted it, glued it on, and I felt like I had accomplished something. Next, I decided to cut a hole into the top buttons, about 1.5 to 1.75 inches. I took quite a few visits to Home Depot to try to find the right inside for this hose connector. I discovered this piece of plumbing PVC. It looked kind of cool, it seemed to fit really well, and with a twist-on end piece, I think we have a lot of potential here. I found that the PVC was just a little bit too thick, so I headed to my school, borrowed their sander, and then sanded it down a bit. Now it fits perfectly. I haven't quite figured out how I'm going to attach the hose, but there's a lot of potential here. During the build process, I decided to take a detour and try to figure out how to fit the box onto the chest piece. My buddy Hosenose, who's a TIE pilot, suggested I use wing nuts and screws to attach it on. It's easy to come on, easy to come off, but yet still very sturdy. I realized throughout this build that the AT-AT driver armor and the TIE pilot armor are very similar. In fact, they're the same thing, except just different colors and a few more different greeblies. This made the process as well as the research a lot easier. At one point during this build, I kind of looked back to what I have accomplished and I started feeling really confident. So I decided to keep pushing by fastening on the buttons, putting on all the greeblies, and just taking it step by step by step.
One of the things I noticed during the build was the potential for a lot of lost greeblies, things popping off here or falling off there. So anytime I could figure out how to screw a greebly in, I took advantage of it. Putting on the greeblies was probably the most satisfying part of this entire process. I kept having to check in with the CRL, make sure everything was in the right place, on the right angle, but in the end, I felt a sense of accomplishment. I left this little circuit board piece for last. It had the potential for ripping off or catching on something, so I'm going to have to be very conscious of this when I go trooping.
So there you go, 90% of the box is done. Pretty happy with what I did. Some things I learned from this process. One, the casing or the shell of the box from Walt's Trooper Factory, I really don't like the dimensions of it. I think it should be thicker and should be a touch wider. I could tell that the box and the Pilot Bay greeblies were not built hand in hand. They didn't really communicate with their sizes, so they typically don't work together. So I had to trim off quite a bit here to match the width of the box from Walt's Trooper Factory. Also, I'm not a huge fan of this design. In most of the AT-AT driver boxes, as well as TIE Pilot boxes, because of pretty much the same shell, usually you have a flush, flat surface where you don't see a third layer wall. The wall itself I'm not a big fan of. I really think there should be another design makeup for that. Also, the thickness of this bottom half of the wall is not thick enough. I would like to see a lot more real estate around here, because the button down here is a touch wider than the box behind it. And to me, when I see pictures from movies, they don't match. So just something to throw out there. Now, as I said, we're not done yet. I still have to figure out a solution for the inside. Probably magnets is what I'm leaning towards, but that will come in a future video when I figure out the hoses. It is a very complicated job, more complicated than I was expecting. Also, what's missing is electronics. I would like to put some lights in here, but that I'm going to have to lean on my buddy Aaron Lutch, because he is a master when it comes to electronics. You haven't seen our Ready to Believe video where he's putting a smoke machine in a ghost trap. The dude's talented as heck, and I want to use his talents to help me build some lights for this box. So stay tuned for that as well. Next video, we're going to continue with the build, and we're getting closer one step at a time. So I hope you can tune in for that. Thanks for watching. By the way, don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, help the channel grow. And I hope this helps motivate you to kind of take that big step into building your costume. It is a big step, especially for people like myself who are not that talented with building, but you can do this. You can totally do this. So don't let it stop you. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you next time. And remember, armor and chest boxes are built on hope. Bye.